This story is based on a true incident. In this story, 3 people broke out of a prison from which, until now, no one had ever come out alive. The security of this prison is so strict that not even a needle can leave without the guard's permission. But these 3 people broke out of South Africa's most dangerous prison, Pretoria, and the South African police could do nothing but watch them. The story begins in 1973. By then, half of South Africa had been burned to ashes because of the discrimination between black and white people, and the white police officers here were killing black people like dogs. Now the scene shifts, and we are shown Tim and his friend Stephen. They graduated that same year, and now they are against this discrimination. One day, in a crowded area, the 2 of them use a small explosive device so that pamphlets scatter through the air. These weren't real bombs, just a way to spread pamphlets. People stop, pick up the flyers, and read the message. As soon as the pamphlets scatter, the team immediately starts to run, but Stephen stops because he wants to see how people are reacting, and that turns out to be his biggest mistake. Just then, the police arrive, and both of them are caught on the spot. In jail, Tim's girlfriend comes to visit him, and they meet. Then Tim clearly says that he will not deny his actions. He is proud of his work. The girl gives him some money, then hugs him tightly and says goodbye. Now, in court, Tim and Stephen are accused of endangering people's lives with bombs, even though they weren't real bombs, but the judge was a strict, white, and hard-hearted man. He angrily says that he hates those people who believe that all humans are equal. Tim, who was a famous protester, is sentenced to 12 years, and Stephen Lee is sentenced to 8 years. In court, their parents start crying, the judge keeps scolding them, and the case comes to an end. Now a police officer seats Stephen, who is handcuffed, on a chair and suddenly leaves from there. At that moment, Stephen notices the open window nearby. He looks around, sees that no one is watching him, and in the very next moment, he jumps out of the window. As soon as he lands, he injures his foot. Just then, a crazed police officer starts shooting at him. Another police officer standing below grabs him and starts beating him badly. Stephen was now completely injured. After that, both prisoners are put into a police van and taken to the dangerous Pretoria Prison. As soon as they arrive at the prison, the warden, Captain Schupel, comes to meet them. He already knows everything about them, but instead of meeting them, he starts to insult them. He says that you have betrayed your own people, and this is where their real prison life begins. A story where hope is still alive. The guards read out the rules to them and search them very carefully to make sure no weapons can be brought inside. After that, they are put inside the prison. As soon as the team enters, the first thing he notices is the door system. He observes it closely and tries to understand how it works. The guards standing in the tower above show off their automatic weapons to intimidate the new prisoners, as if they're just looking for an excuse to fire. Then the guards take the team and Stephen to separate but adjacent cells, with no one else in their cells. Tim sits quietly, reflecting on the recent events. In the morning, a loud bell rings and Tim wakes up. All the prisoners come out of their cells and walk together towards the mosque. Tim, who is a bit shy, is afraid to approach any table. Just then, a prisoner comes up to him and invites him to join. This prisoner's name is Dennis Goldberg, a famous political prisoner who was caught years ago while trying to overthrow the apartheid government and is now serving his sentence in this prison. After a while, Stephen also joins them. Both of them show their respect to Dennis because, to them, Dennis is a legend. Then they tell Dennis that they want to escape from prison. At this point, an important fact is revealed. This film is based on a true story. Tim Jenkins, Stephen Lee, and Dennis Goldberg were real-life South African political activists who were actually imprisoned in 1970. Meanwhile, the 3 witness a horrifying scene. A black kitchen worker accidentally spills some soup, and a guard starts beating him mercilessly with a stick. Nearby, white prisoners stand and laugh loudly at his suffering. Seeing this, the atmosphere becomes even heavier. Now, Dennis takes this opportunity to discuss the escape plan with Tim and Stephen in detail. He says that it won't be easy at all. The prison walls are very high, there are barbed wires on top. Guards in the tower are always ready with searchlights and machine guns, and if anyone tries to escape, they will be shot immediately. Digging a tunnel is also impossible. In the end, Dennis explains to them that they should give up this foolish dream. But a prisoner standing nearby was listening to their conversation. His name was Leonard Fountain. He comes over to them and says, "If you're planning to escape, I want to join you too." Night falls. Tim takes out the matchbox he had hidden and brought into his cell. He tries to look inside the lock and figure out how it works. Just then, he hears the footsteps of a guard approaching. He quickly blows out the match and breaks it, but he doesn't give up. For many nights, he keeps doing the same thing, trying to understand the lock. One night, he takes a piece of paper and presses it against the keyhole. then traces the shape of the keyhole with a pencil. After that, he inserts another piece of paper inside and tries to understand the mechanism inside the lock using the pencil. Now Tim was not just thinking, he was slowly creating a way to escape. In the hall, Leonard deliberately causes a commotion. He makes noise to distract the guard so that Tim can get a chance to steal the keys. But Tim is unable to do so and the opportunity slips away. Now they have to find another way. During exercise in the yard, Tim quietly approaches the guard and carefully observes the patterns on his keys, memorizing them. Later, he draws all those patterns on paper. Over the next several days, Tim uses every opportunity to look closely at the keys and keeps sketching each one. Then he takes advantage of his woodworking shop job and secretly sneaks out small pieces of the necessary wood. Just then, a guard comes in, and at the same moment, Stephen drops a bowl full of nails on the floor. The noise distracts the guard, and in the meantime, Tim quickly hides the band equipment in a thermos and starts to leave. The guard becomes suspicious, calls both of them over, and orders a check. He opens the thermos and spills out the coffee, and looks inside. He is surprised because Tim's thermos appears empty, but in reality, it wasn't. Tim had already gotten the parts he needed to make the keys. Now he takes out a small knife and starts carving pieces of wood. Then he glues those pieces together. Night after night, Tim works tirelessly to make wooden keys. One night he tries to unlock the door of his cell. Suddenly he hears a click and overjoyed opens the door. Now his confidence has grown. One morning, while some prisoners keep watch, Tim tries to unlock the outer door. At first, the key doesn't go in, but after a little adjustment, it slides in easily and the door opens. But then a new problem arises. The key won't come out now. In his panic, Tim accidentally breaks the key. He immediately tries to remove the broken wooden piece stuck inside the lock so he doesn't get caught. Just then, a guard passes by. Tim holds his breath, but after a moment, the guard moves on. Even after trying his best, Tim can't get the wooden piece out. Finally, he gives up. He lies down on his bed and thinks, whatever happens now, he'll deal with it. Just then, his eyes fall on the door. The latch was sticking out, but Tim thinks maybe it's his own mistake and the guard didn't notice. Now, he puts his key back in. He unlocks the lock and pushes the door shut. As soon as the metal key goes in, the wooden piece stuck inside comes out on its own. Tim is amazed at his incredible luck. Meanwhile, Leonard gets a visitor, his young son. Leonard reassures his son, telling him how much he loves him and that he'll see him very soon. Then he goes and stands by the window, lost in thought. Suddenly, a guard starts yelling at him very harshly because he got too close to the window and his son got scared. Just then, the boy's mother comes in and takes the child away with her. Leonard, angry, yells at the guards because they cut short the time he got to spend with his son. Later, he tells Tim and Stephen that he wants to get out of there as soon as possible. Now, a new problem arises. The outer door could only be opened from the outside, so the three of them come up with a unique solution. They plan to use a wire running through the barred window to insert the key into the door from inside, but this would only allow the key to go in, not turn. So, the three of them go to an empty cell to figure out how to make this work. Just then, a guard comes by and starts listening closely to their conversation. As soon as Leonard sees him, he quickly signals Tim and Stephen, and all three immediately stop talking. The guard asks, "What were you guys talking about?" They say, "Nothing," and start cleaning the cell. Just then, Stephen gets an idea. He says, "Let's use the broom, since it's long enough to reach the window lock." But then he wonders, but how will the key turn? Tim finds the answer in the wood workshop. He sees an inmate operating a wooden mechanical machine, and that's where he gets the idea. Tim makes a rotating wooden key stand that can turn just like a real key. He attaches it to the end of the broom and tries it out. To aim properly, he uses a small mirror attached to a toothbrush. The key doesn't go in on the first try. Tim adjusts it a bit and tries again, but it still doesn't work. And even worse, Tim drops the key on the ground. He quickly grabs some chewing gum, sticks it to the end of the broom, and picks up the wooden key. By morning, Tim is exhausted from trying all night. He tells the other two that it took him the whole night, but finally, the door opened. Now, the three of them put the keys in a jar and bury it in the garden. At that moment, a guard in the tower is watching them. He was already suspicious because he had overheard their conversation. He comes up to Stephen and asks to check his bag but finds nothing. Now he heads toward Tim. Tim quickly runs to bury the jar. The guard comes over and asks, "What were you guys talking about?" Tim calmly says, just about gardening. The guard believes him and walks away. But Dennis Goldberg was listening to all of this. He once again tries to convince Tim to reconsider escaping. He feels that the plan is heading toward failure. If the plan fails, the guards will shoot them without any excuse, because the guards are always ready to fire at the prisoners. Now Tim realizes that if they really want to escape, they'll need more people who can handle different tasks. So the three of them slowly start including more prisoners, most of whom are political prisoners. The new members begin helping the group. Some bring clothes, some tools, and others necessary supplies. Now, the escape plan was gradually getting bigger. The guard was now keeping a very close eye on Tim. He was certain that Tim and his companions were planning something big, but he had no proof, so he couldn't do anything. During this time, a black prisoner quietly comes to Tim and gives him a small bar of soap. When he gets the chance, Tim carefully traces the shape of the keys onto the soap, and then hides those markings under the trash bin so that no one would suspect anything. Sometime later, the guard comes to Tim's cell. He gives him new glasses and, laughing, says that the black man who had helped them tried to escape, so they shot him. Hearing this, anger boils inside Tim, but he keeps himself calm, knowing that even a small mistake could cost him his life. After this, Tim and Leonard decide to practice escaping. At night, they slowly open their cells, then open the door to the entire block and quietly go down the stairs. When they reach the bottom, they hear that the fat guard sitting in the booth is listening to loud classical music. They try to quietly open the door, but just as the key is about to turn, the music suddenly stops and the guard slowly starts moving toward the door. Tim and Leonard quickly close the door and look for a place to hide. There was no time to go back upstairs, so they squeeze into the cupboard near the stairs. They're scared because the cupboard door isn't closing properly from their side. The guard comes toward the stairs, mutters something, and then goes back upstairs. As soon as he's gone, Tim and Leonard resume their practice. They pass by the booth and see that the record player is stuck in one place. They open another door. At that very moment, the guard sitting upstairs goes into their cells. He peeks inside. He sees something under the blanket that looks like a person, but in reality, it was just a pile of pillows. Just then, one of the prisoners upstairs starts coughing loudly. Hearing the noise, Tim and Leonard realize that moving forward now would be dangerous. They slowly close all the doors and hide in the cupboard again. The guard comes downstairs and notices something strange on the floor. It was drops of sweat that had fallen while they were running. But the guard doesn't pay much attention. He wipes them away with his shoe and leaves. Breathing a sigh of relief, Tim and Leonard return to their cells. In the morning, Captain Schneppel and the guard come to Tim's cell. Tim was in a deep sleep from the exhaustion of the previous night, so even the loud bell couldn't wake him. They forcefully wake him up and interrogate him. Since Tim wasn't sick, Schneppel realizes that he must have been awake all night. Tim says nothing, just keeps repeating, "I'm sorry, Captain." Hearing this, Schneppel gets angry. He gets angry and threatens him that if he oversleeps again, he will regret it. They throw him out of the cell and search it. Meanwhile, Tim and Stephen see that the guards are also searching Leonard's cell. They tear up all the letters from his son. Seeing this, Leonard angrily tries to stop them, but the guards catch him and drag him away. Later, he is put into solitary confinement, where he keeps cursing the guards' cruelty and anger. Schneppel calls Tim over and starts scolding him for having prohibited books and papers. In his anger, he throws all of Tim's belongings onto the floor, and then his eyes fall on something strange. A small piece of a wooden key which Tim had forgotten to throw away. Seeing this, Tim panics inside while Schneppel tries to figure out what it is. He asks Tim, "What is this?" Tim carefully replies, "It's a stand for holding photos." Schneppel is still suspicious, but the explanation seems plausible. So he warns Tim that if he really is planning something, he will regret it, and then leaves. As soon as the guard leaves, Tim starts feeling extremely anxious. The pressure of making such a big plan right under the guard's nose begins to break him from within. He starts having panic attacks repeatedly, but he keeps moving forward, suppressing his fear. Learning from his previous mistake, he begins hiding the keys in different places. They practice again and again, learning something new each time. One night, Tim goes to the dentist, and on his way back to his cell, he notices an electric door that had broken down. He calls the guard standing nearby to open the door, and at that moment, he realizes that finding a way to open this door will be crucial for their escape. The next day, he is quickly taken away from the yard because he sees the construction of a new guard tower outside. Later, Tim tells the other political prisoners that they now have 39 keys to 15 doors inside the prison, but they are still hesitant to escape, because opening the doors and actually getting out of the prison are two different things. Dennis flatly refuses and says it's too dangerous. Tim tries to convince him that staying in this prison is like bowing down to the regime, but the other prisoners side with Dennis. This leads to an argument between Leonard and Dennis, as Leonard no longer wants to wait. In the end, the three of them leave the other prisoners behind. One night, before going to bed, Schnabel comes to Tim's cell again and searches his belongings. After he leaves, Tim uses a small wooden tool to give Stephen a piece of newspaper in which a map of the prison was hidden, secretly printed by the anti-apartheid organization. Now everything was ready. The three of them make their final escape plan. Tim quietly opens his own door, then opens Stephen's and Leonard's doors. He asks Dennis one last time to come with them, but Dennis still refuses and wishes them luck. As soon as they step out of their cells, the three of them retrieve their hidden bags, which contained the clothes and supplies needed for the escape, and now the most dangerous step of their lives was about to begin. They slowly start putting on their clothes. Downstairs, the burly guard quickly runs toward the toilet. But the toilet is clogged, so he goes to the cupboard near the stairs to look for a plunger. He moves the boxes and containers inside one by one and finally takes out the plunger. Just then, his eyes fall on the door, where he notices something strange. There is a paperclip stuck there, the same paperclip that Leonard and Tim had used in this cupboard before. Meanwhile, the three have fully dressed and are standing ready to open the block door. Suddenly, they are startled by the sound of the burly guard's heavy breathing and groaning from downstairs. The atmosphere suddenly becomes tense. Still, Leonard gathers his courage and opens the door. The three of them slowly go downstairs and hide in the same cupboard. But here, a big problem arises. The guard has already taken their paperclip, so Tim holds the door shut with his finger, somehow keeping it closed. Moments later, the guard returns to put the plunger back in the cupboard. At that moment, Dennis distracts him to help them. He gives himself an electric shock and starts screaming loudly. The guard is forced to go upstairs to see what the commotion is about. Seizing the opportunity, Tim, Stephen, and Leonard quickly slip out of the cupboard and run toward the next door. They open several doors one after another, but suddenly find the way ahead blocked. Now they realize that Leonard will have to go back and press the buzzer to open the electric door. Leonard goes back, presses the buzzer, and the door opens. The three of them rush inside. Now they have reached the last door before the yard. They peek inside through the keyhole and see that the main prison gates are wide open. But a new problem arises. None of the keys they have can open the white door that leads to the yard. Seeing this, they become disheartened. Now they have very little time left, and going back is not an option, so they quickly look for a way to break the lock. Leonard takes out a cutter and starts hitting the door hard, while Tim stands outside on lookout, afraid of being caught. Just then, he hears the sound of heavy footsteps. The burly guard is slowly coming toward them. Tim, panicking, tells Leonard to hurry up. Leonard cuts even faster, until the latch of the lock becomes clearly visible. Finally, they put on the rest of their clothes and open the door. As soon as they move forward, Tim sees that an armed guard is coming toward the wall. He immediately pushes Leonard toward the wall so they can try to get out before it's too late. They keep an eye on the guard using a small mirror. As soon as the guard leaves, Tim slowly moves toward the gate. Just outside the gate is a busy city street where everyday life is going on. Stephen and Leonard follow behind him. They wonder why only one guard is watching over these huge gates from above. And even he doesn't look toward the gate most of the time. They take out the map, look at it, and start walking calmly as if they are ordinary people. No one pays attention to them, and slowly they move away from the prison. Further ahead, they reach a taxi, which is being driven by a black driver. They ask him to take them. The driver is a bit surprised because at that time in South Africa, it was unusual for white people to ride in a black driver's taxi. Still, he thinks for a moment and finally lets them in. Morning comes. As usual, the guard comes and opens the cells. Dennis greets him. Everything seems normal, but suddenly the guard gets confused because Tim and Stephen don't come out of their cells, even though they should have. He senses something is wrong. He quickly goes inside and is shocked to see that both of them are not on their beds. The cells are empty. The other prisoners start laughing at this, because the guard, panicking, runs in a strange way and rushes to sound the alarm. Chaos erupts in the prison. Meanwhile, the three men are celebrating the incredible success of their escape. They laugh loudly, shout, and react with joy like madmen. The driver gets confused seeing them, wondering why these people are so happy. At that moment, Tim looks at his wooden key and tears come to his eyes. He is extremely happy at this seemingly impossible success. The biggest manhunt in South African history is launched to catch them. Searches are conducted everywhere, but even so, the three of them successfully cross the border. They reach London safely, where they rejoin the African National Congress and continue their struggle against apartheid. After spending 22 years in prison, Dennis Goldberg is released in 1985. With this, the story ends here. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our channel to watch more such videos.